Hi.
So, welcome. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Okay. So, welcome to the Node and API. Sorry, welcome to the Node.js Node API team meeting for the 22nd of January. We'll follow our typical agenda, which is to go through the issues tagged for milestone 11. Before we do that, though, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make? I guess if not, I see we have a new attendee. So I don't know, Mo, if you want to just give us a short intro and sort of what your interest is.
I actually saw an application for an API, and I do web development, and I also code in Python. So I was just interested in learning more and see like what the meeting would be about. So
Okay.
that was pretty much the reason I joined.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks. Thanks for showing up and welcome. So I will share the things we've tagged for the agenda. The first one I added just a little bit about I'm just wondering if we should make a submission to OpenJS World. The call for papers opened, I think, a week or two ago and closes in a couple weeks. And I wondered what people thought.
Absolutely, just got to think of a good topic.
Yeah. So my first thought was blog and API. We did an update. Node media. I'm just wondering if not that one. Right, this one, right? I wonder if something with an abstract along the lines of, building modern native add-ons for Node.js in 2020 would make sense.
Correction, 2021.
Yeah, okay, well, that would be good, yeah.
What are the sort of requirements for this OpenJS world? Is it just like an article or?
Well, it's a presentation. So this year there's like a keynote track that's going to be live, streamed, and basically you can watch them in real time. The rest, I understand, the rest of the talks will be pre-recorded videos, and people can kind of go in and watch the different ones that they like as part of the conference. So for the the submission requires like an abstract and who's going to be presenting it, and then the actual delivery is going to be like a pre-recorded video that we can submit. That's kind of nice, in that we can get more people from the team involved to do that, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Does this replace a previous conference, or is this a new conference?
This is this did occur last year in July, OpenJS World, virtual again because of COVID, but it replaced Node.js Interactive.
Okay, and it's going to be in July.
Yep.
Okay.
June, actually June, I think. So
in June.
Yeah, it's the conference which is run by the OpenJS Foundation.
Okay.
So it'll have talks, a good number of talks from the Node project, but also from related to the other projects and JavaScript in general.
Yeah.
So I mean, sounds like the answer is yes, we should do something. Just a matter of putting together a abstract and title, right?
Yeah, and I'd be happy to do that, Michael.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think some starting ideas. And I just put in that, and Jim is going to take a first pass. Sounds good. So maybe, well, hopefully we can discuss in the issue itself, because I think there's a couple weeks to go.
Okay, good.
The one thing that does remind me is I can't make next week. Gabriel, can you stream chair?
Yep, can do. I can, if that
You
didn't
can.
make it across. Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, the first time it didn't, but this time did this time. So that's good. Okay, so that's the first issue. So that sounds good. We'll collaborate on that offline and get something submitted, which is good. The next one was discuss 36.5.10. I know we talked a little bit about some of these, but let's dip into each one of them just to see where we're at on them. Right, so this was caught catching the uncaught exceptions on calling into modules, and the discussion we had last time was around the fact that it's effectively Semver major because it can break existing code, and we put together, based on our discussion, sort of an outline of what we thought would make sense, and I tried to capture what we discussed in this comment in the issue. Does everybody had a chance to had a quick read of that and think that that does capture what we discussed, and still think that that's the proper way forward?
It seems like a pretty good way. It's sort of a balance between being too strict and breaking people too hard and dragging out the transition process. I mean, I can imagine a slightly longer transition where the initial value of this is of the option is true rather than oh wait, no, not true. I mean, like, basically, you know, by default, if you do nothing, then this behavior, the current
Right.
behavior, continues rather than the opposite.
Right.
But it may be okay to go straight for the opposite, because otherwise it doesn't have much of an impact, you know, and then people tend not to act if they don't have to, right? So
yeah, I'm kind of hoping that, like, it should be fairly limited impact, right? Like, hopefully there aren't too many apps out there with uncaught exceptions that aren't being reported and unnoticed, right? Because in theory they would run into some sort of other problems in the end and be caught.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
we can always, you know, I think what you just described is, if we find out we're completely wrong, then, you know, at least we've got a fallback where we could flip that to the default being false instead of true, right?
Yeah, I think exactly. I think if the disruption is big enough, we can even make that like a patch level sort of fix to change the default.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so it sounds like we're still think that's our way forward. So it's basically just needs to, I don't know if Legendicast has had a chance to update it to reflect that. I don't think so yet, right?
It doesn't say outdated on my comments, but I haven't seen if there are commits at the bottom.
Okay.
There are none.
Okay.
Okay, well,
go ahead.
no, I'm just gonna say all in good time. So, but other than
Yeah.
that, I think the fundamental way forward is sound.
Okay. So I think maybe that one we can, we can close out this issue. Right. We've discussed and agreed on the way forward, which is documented in closing, because I don't think we need that on our agenda anymore. Everybody agree?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll close that one out. We'll go back, hopefully. I'm just gonna. Did I not? Is that the one I thought I just closed? Maybe I didn't close it. There you go.
Michael, Mo fell off. He may want to be readmitted.
Okay, let me just check the participants. Right, okay. There, thank you. Re-promoted. Okay, the next one I did add myself as well, which is like GitHub has added some tooling to do a rename of the primary branch to main. I'm thinking we should probably do that. Certainly for ABI stable node, we don't really have any existing pull requests. And I think the impact is going to be pretty minimal. So I was thinking, unless there's objections, I would just go ahead and do that.
Do we even have a master branch currently? Because I remember that we only had like the various API implementation branches for various versions of Node, but I don't think in ABI stable Node we even have a master branch.
Okay, well then that's a very good point. Let me just check that.
Yeah.
You were right. Okay, so turns out discussed in meeting, turns out we don't even have a master branch.
I wish they were
no,
all
not,
that
not,
easy.
no, wait a
No,
minute.
that,
This
wait a
is
minute.
ABI stable Node, not Node add-on. We do have a master branch
Right,
in Node
right,
add-on.
yeah, ABI stable node. Okay, thank you.
We don't get another get out of jail free card.
Right. Okay, so in terms of Node add-on API, that one I think we do, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think so from what I understand, it'll manage the pull requests that are in flight. Okay. And I think that it was supposed to handle redirects, although I'm not 100%. Maybe that's something worth checking. Like, let's see, GitHub. Right, okay, so there's this new thing, so it says you can now rename a branch from the web, okay. Update tuple requests, update one branch. So it doesn't update local environments. Okay, retarget, so rename branch, retarget any open pull request, update any draft releases based on the branch. Any branch protection rules, special name. Right, okay, so redirect web requests for the old branch name to the new branch name. So I think like in terms of links, doc links and stuff like that, that should preserve that side of things.
Do you think there's anywhere in the CI where we explicitly state master?
That is a very good question. So let's see. Can go there. Actually, I'm just going to stop sharing there for a second when I look, because I'm not 100% sure that everything should be shared on that one. I'm just looking for the thing where we do the checkout.
Normally we fill in a text box with like a refs pull request number / head, and then we do that. But otherwise, I think the default value for that is master. But you have to type in the branch before submitting one. Though the nightlies probably do that by default. And we don't rebase like the way core rebases onto the main branch before running. We don't do that, I believe. We just get the requisite versions of Node.js as tarballs and then build
Yeah, so it's definitely, where is it? It's definitely like you said. So there's the default branch.
Yeah.
I guess so we would just need to update that, right?
Yes. Update the default value and maybe the nightlies ought to have that fixed, because the nightlies one doesn't specify anything. They just run. So
I think they just run this one.
Okay, yeah, with the so if we update the default value, then the nightly should also be fine.
So I think if we, I'm just what I'm thinking. We update this one, then the other main job is the this LTS versions, which just runs that but specifies the node version.
Yep.
Sorry, yeah. That's a good point. Any other questions on what we need to update?
There's also the Legenda Class's linter that we added, the GitHub action. There,
right.
it references the master branch on origin.
Okay.
So we would need to change it there.
Let me just take, a few things we will also need to change. One, Jenkins job references. Okay, default branch to branch. Test. Actually, let me just going to put this in there. So you said GitHub.
GitHub actions for the linter.
So if we go to that, yeah. That'd be in here, right?
The last line.
Okay. So basically just, again, that would be changed to main, right? Any other things we can think of?
That's all I got.
Okay.
What about people who have forks?
I think for PRs, I guess what it says is it's not going to change the local person's environment.
They would probably need to change their remote to add master or rename master to main.
If they're going to do a rebase or something like that, they would need to make that change.
So we might want to put a heads up on the README for a period of time.
Yep, sounds good. Heads up on README. And I wonder if any of our docs have any. Do docs have any references? Sorry, I'm just going to do a quick rep, I think, to see if.
Yeah, we have some references in there to master.
Okay.
For example, the creating a release document says validate all tests passed by running npm test on master.
Yeah, okay.
So stuff like that.
Okay, so any other things?
We're probably going to want to go through the process on the examples repo also, where it may be a bit more. If we get it through on this one, then we can learn from that one. And then, because I think the examples, it's going to be a lot more changes on the examples.
Okay. So I'd suggest this one, it looks like we have a few things to do, but we could, I wonder if it's okay for us to do the rename, then fix up the docs. Like we need to fix up the Jenkins job and the GitHub linter at the same time, but that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah, I think the docs are probably the most flexible, because they won't trip anything up if they have the wrong reference.
Right.
They won't even trip up people, because if they type in master, they're going to get main.
Right. That's true. It's just like if you clone or whatever. So.
Yeah, and the heads up we give on the README, could it include that we're in the process of updating the docs?
Right. Okay. Anybody want to volunteer to help with the doc side of thing?
I'll do that, Michael.
Sure.
Okay. So how about like if everybody's okay, I can go ahead and do the first 3, just because they probably need to be done at the same time. And then Jim, if you can take a look at fixing up the docs. And I suspect we won't have, hopefully, there's not so much activity there that, it should affect too many people, and after a week or so we'll be fixed up.
So when we do this rename, like using the Git UI, does it actually change like the Git branch, or does it just have like a high level redirect, like
I
above
think it
Git?
completely replaces master with main.
Okay, so basically Git branch minus D master, Git checkout minus B main master. Okay, in the opposite order. So it does the actual like Git operations as well, right? It doesn't just add like another layer above.
No, it's not adding a new alias. I think it's actually changing it.
Good.
And it, I think they've added the things to like so that the PRs are automatically.
Yeah, that's the layer
well.
above, right? Because that's outside of Git scope.
Yeah.
But if it does change the actual Git repo, then that's good, because we want that.
Yeah, so I think it's basically you've just completely replaced one with the other, subject to the few things you've got to fix up, and hopefully like the redirects for docs and stuff still work, but there will be places in the docs where it says like checkout master, which wouldn't work anymore because it doesn't exist.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that wouldn't work.
Okay, so I will do that either today or sometime next week, and then I'll mention you, Jim, to just say, hey, if you can start looking at the docs, and then we'll see if anything goes. And yeah, I think it's good. You're right that doing it on this one is probably good, and then we can think about the examples one.
Sounds good.
Okay, great.
Maybe use this issue for things that we stumble over as we do this. So if anything else sort of pops up that needs to be done that we haven't covered in these points, then maybe we should add it to the issue, so then it becomes kind of a recipe for moving from one branch to another by default.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So if there's any gotchas or whatever, so
we should keep them here.
Yep, that's a great idea. Okay, the next one were the stale issues. So let's see. We'll just open a few of these. I see actually this one got closed out. That's because of GitHub. So this one I think we should reopen. So where are we? Right, this one I thought, I remember, Gabriel, you doing some work in terms of, or there was definitely discussion that we had around, you could get the add-on API, like getting a handle to the module.
This is a kind of an old issue. The person needs a handle to the module, and we've kind of not allowed that. So I'm not sure how, if we're going to do anything about this, because it's not too many people have this requirement, and it can be solved with a JavaScript sort of module in front of the native module, but this person doesn't want that. So I'm really not sure how we could help here.
Okay.
They basically need to forego the usual loading process. So just context equals require add-on .node is not sufficient for them. That's basically the upshot.
Right, but we don't think that that's going to, for most people, using the wrapper module would be fine, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Most people would go with that because it's an NPM package. The entry point doesn't have to be a native module, right? For most people.
Okay, so for add-ons being loaded from other add-on modules, but right, okay. So I guess it's like, we probably need to say, we're just either it's like we're not doing anything immediately, we don't think we'll ever do anything, or
What does this person say? Can you please move the mouse a little so I can see
yeah,
their
sure.
last comment? To migrate, but I am stuck on this. Okay. Right. Right. So it's preventing one of the modules from being moved over to an API because they need that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I think this is a won't fix, honestly. Because I mean, even with
Yeah.
ESM, this stuff is going away. So
Right. Right, okay. So basically, we've discussed it. We don't see any good options. We see it and we don't see any good options. We discussed this and don't see any good options that with Spirit. Or I don't know if Spirit's the right word, but with let's kind of want to say like within the the guidelines that we've been following for the API.
yeah, yeah, the abstractions that we've chosen, I don't know. There's no good way to say this, as far as I can tell.
Maybe we've discussed this and don't see any good options that fit with the abstractions we want to preserve in the API. Like unless there's more requests, cases where it blocks adoption. Let's see. Is that fair?
It's as good as it gets, I guess.
Alternatives which is the alternative is the wrapper module, right?
Yep. So like, let me see here. Maybe something like I'm typing it in the chat.
Sure.
Yeah, like that. So so basically the add-on exports a function which receives the module, which then which then adds on everything to the module, including exports. So this would be the way to go, is to just change.
Do you have that up in a comment above somewhere?
I may, yes.
This one right here? No.
No, I do remember saying that at some point, but might have been a way back.
Right.
Okay, that's a different discussion in the same issue. Oh, here maybe. Yes, this is how you would do it with the front end. So I guess this is an alternative what I just wrote is an alternative where you do require the node module, but you call a function on it that passes back the thing. This is even more succinct, but it's still not a pure require.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a little different because this method does not require any additional JavaScript file, but it does require buy-in from whoever's consuming the module to load it differently than regular modules.
Alternatives include suggestion outlined in this one.
Yep.
And then this guy, so this is basically saying you basically call a method.
Yeah. So you know, in the init, you know, you return a nappy value, right? The
Yep.
nappy value is the new exports object, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so that exports object is now a function, right?
Yep.
Which gets called immediately as soon as it returns into JavaScript, and
Yep.
then the function receives the module and then returns the actual bindings.
Right. Okay. Making exports a function that can receive the module
and return the bindings as a function of that. Yeah.
Right. So that basically is a way to pass the module into your add-on.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't require much. You basically just added it, instead of doing the require plainly, you've added it passing in the module.
Yeah. The only thing one forfeits by using this is that unless you do extraordinary work to maintain the exports object that was passed into the init function by, for example, adding it to the instance data, then you forfeit the exports object, which is fine because, you know, just returning a new object is just as good. It's there's no penalty for that, right? Because the export, if you just return a function, then whatever exports object was passed into the init function is now lost. But that's okay. That's fine. You can just return a new object that's empty, you know, decorated with whatever bindings you have, you know, taking into account the module object that was passed in, and return that, and it's just as
Didn't you
good.
just return the exact same objects, but having stored the module in it?
Well, no, because the init function receives exports and is expected to return a value, right? That
Right.
value must now be a function, right? So so then, you know, you could okay, well, I guess you could create that function that you return with associated data and a finalizer that basically stores the exports object as a persistent, and then when that function gets called, it can retrieve the data, you know, which is now a persistent reference to exports, and then it can even delete the reference because that call is only ever going to happen once. So
I was actually even just thinking, like, this, you know, you're returning, the require returns you the exports, right? Which you've made a function, and that function then takes a method, takes this thing, but it could just as easily like also have, you could have used that same object, like it, you know, a function is just an object, so that you could have used that same object to build your exports.
hold on. Let me type a quick snippet here into the chat, and I'll show you.
Yeah.
So that would be env exports expref, and then nappy create function env something, and then expref. Okay, and result, right, and then return result, and then later on, when that function gets called, you nappy get cb info, env info expref, and then an API value exports like that, and then an API get reference value env.
Do you want to share your screen?
No. It's just
No?
it's
Okay.
just like 6 lines.
Okay.
Exports, and then an API delete reference env expref. So like that. This is what the person would have to do. The top chunk is the init function, right? It returns a function, and then the bottom chunk is the body of the function that is being returned from init. This is how you would keep module and exports together. So in the top function, when you create the function called something, which ends up being the result of init. In other words, the new exports object. You pass this persistent reference to exports as the data item for that function, which can be retrieved using nappy-get cb info, right? It can be retrieved using that function, and then since it's a persistent reference, you need to then delete the reference because you're only ever gonna use that reference once. So you kind of toss it up in the air in init, and you catch it in whatever function you export from init and delete it.
Right. I guess what I'm like, we already have, yeah, like, because this exports that is passed in, like we already have it so that you can just create
but it's
your
not
own exports if you wanted, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So you don't necessarily need to store it as a reference. You can, instead of in the second function, instead of an API get cb info, I mean, you still want to call an API get cb info just to get the modules object, right?
Right.
But you need not do any an API get reference value. You can simply an API create object and then return that object at the end, and then that's a brand new exports object. So yes, you don't need to. But if for whatever funky reason you want to save that exports object that the init function received because it's so special to you for whatever good and established reason, then you can use a reference to pass it into this function that ends up being the one that creates the actual add-on. So either way works.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking like most cases, you just, we've already got lots of examples where you ignore the exports that was passed in.
Exactly, yeah.
The init, you just create your own exports. Thank you. And that exports can actually have multiple methods on it, right? Like you can.
Of course, yeah. It's a full-fledged JavaScript object, just like the exports object that was passed in. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So this is only if you want to be extremely pedantic and cherish that exports object that was passed into the init. This would be how you would do it. Otherwise, inside the second one, you would just an API create object, decorate, and return the object that you created, and no need for a persistent reference or anything.
Right, where the init returns an export object that is a function, and that function simply decorates or stores the module and then returns the export, the same export object.
Well, the same or a new one, it doesn't matter. The same
I'm thinking like all the tools will just work if you make it the same one.
But then you need to do the reference thing.
The only limitation, but do you? Because there's still a reference to it.
Think about this. Just think about the init function alone, right? If you do absolutely nothing with the exports object in the init function, then it will be lost because it doesn't get passed into any bindings. It only gets passed into the init function, right? So if you do nothing with it in the init function, it is lost. And so any binding that returns an object would have to return a brand new object created using an API create object.
Right.
Right. So the only way to save the exports during init is to attach it to something. You can say an API set instance data or an API create function with that thing as the data parameter, right?
But I guess I mean the original the original exports, you know, that's passed into init, there's no real reason to use that because there's nothing special about
Exactly.
it.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, that's right.
So just
That's
ignore
right.
that one. So you've created a new export objects, you've added all the methods you want on it.
Yep.
But you've made it a function instead of just an object. And therefore,
okay, no, we're thinking of different things. Okay, no. Okay, so you're thinking that the function returned by init is decorated using all the bindings, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm assuming that it is impossible to create the bindings without access to the module object. Otherwise, if it were possible, then why do you need the module object to create the bindings, right? Why do you need access to the module object at all, right? I'm assuming that in order to create the bindings, you need access to the module object. That's why it's so important that it somehow make it onto the native side. In which case, you cannot create the bindings in init.
Okay.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
And so that's why you need to store, if you want to be pedantic and reuse the exports object, you need to store it as a persistent and then pass it into the function that is ultimately responsible for creating the bindings. Or if you're not pedantic, you just an API create object in that function, decorate and return a brand new object.
But the bindings, couldn't you still create the bindings? Okay, so the first object doesn't have the bindings. But
that's right, exactly.
Then you add the bindings into that object.
Well, no. The object returned by init is a function, a completely undecorated, plain old function. When you call that function from JavaScript, it returns the actual bindings, right?
But I'm like, why not just add like, you know, there is a limitation to this. Like, just decorate the function with the things you need.
Because the assumption here is that in order to create the bindings, you need the module, right?
But I mean, do that. So it's a function without those added. You then call the function passing in the module, then it adds those extra methods.
It doesn't add the methods. It just creates a new object with all those methods.
But I'm saying it could just add the methods to the existing object.
To the function that was returned?
Yeah.
Yes, but then you would have to pass the function into the function because there is no we don't have a way of retrieving the function, the JavaScript object that represents the function that is currently being executed on the native side. We don't have a way of retrieving that.
Okay.
So you would, but that's fine. You can pass that in as the data. So once you accept once you accept this two-step process, there's ample flexibility in how to implement it. But the basic assumption is that you cannot create the bindings unless you have access to the module.
Right. Okay. And that function either returns a new binding object, adds, I mean, and it could be, so basically you're saying you would have to be like, well, I guess that's hard to do because you would have to do that in a two-step process, I see.
Yeah. It's not impossible, but once you construct your require call like this, then you have several options on what to return, what to save, what not to save, how to create your bindings, all while being aware of the value of the module object.
About that.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So basically, you've got the module in a function. If a function's been called with the module, you can now figure out a way to,
create the bindings,
create what you need, right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
And I mean, what you said, Michael, which is to decorate the original function, is also possible as long as you're willing to create the bindings without being aware of the value of module, and then basically store the module in a persistent reference, and then have the rest of the execution of your module be influenced by that. So yeah, that's also possible, right? So yeah, as long as this is the calling convention for requiring the add-on, all those things are possible.
Right. Okay. So it basically works, and even you could have like an extra method which passes it to it, right? But except for the part where you said you can't even create the bindings without it, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
The safest thing is to make the code that runs, that creates things, as little as possible until you have everything that you need to create it.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And then if the module is one of those things, then you don't want to create anything unless you have the module.
Right.
Just to be safe. But of course you can.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's reasonable then, and that's like it takes perhaps some work, but it seems completely doable, right?
Yeah, and it requires buy-in from whoever's consuming the native add-on. That's the bottom line, and that requirement of buy-in we cannot eliminate. Well, we could, but we don't like to, because we have committed to having this super basic interface. So
right, and we don't want to tie it to ES6 or to, you know,
right.
or and so if somebody wants to do that specifically for their module, that's fine, right? But
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
don't want to make it a pattern that we're encouraging.
Yeah. 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 So I mean, if we were to do this in core, what we would probably do is attach the module to the environment, since the environment is now per add-on anyway, right? We would attach that object using a persistent reference, and then we'd add an API like an API get module, you know.
Right.
But the use case doesn't seem so wide, because we're doing just fine without it, you know, but most of the community. Right?
Yeah, and
so
then the risk is that then it's now tied to, like, whether you require it or you do an ES6.
Exactly.
Import.
What is the module if it's ES6? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's basically why we do not like doing it.
Right.
And the thing is, like, you know, for most other engines, it would the module, like an API get module, would just be an API create object, return object. That's
right.
what it would be, because they don't have a concept of a module, right? So you know, we'd kind of be spreading this
right.
common JS centric worldview if we started doing this,
Yep.
because an API is certainly being used outside of Node.js as well, and so we don't want to do that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that seems reasonable. Like, there are a few options, maybe a little bit more work, but it shouldn't be completely stuck. So
yeah,
we'll see what the comeback to that is. Probably good to move on then to this one. I think then I'm gonna say we've addressed. And what was it? Somebody remind me. It was like squiggle or something to get strikeout.
Double squiggle.
Double squiggle.
Yeah, on either end. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Good. Okay. So this was. Love to see a run in node thread implementation.
Oh, I see. This is this is basically calling a thread safe function, with a function pointer to execute on the Node.js side. So this is exactly what the original thread safe function is, which is you can have a marshaller for each call, a separate marshaller for each call. So we kind of already have that. This is just sort of a convenience wrapper on top of that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it sounds, yeah, I think it's like, you know, something where it's fairly easy to just say run in node thread, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically the JS callback is that.
Right. So I guess the question for us is, like, do we think this is something worth pulling in? Does it belong in a separate library?
It's pretty borderline. It would be nice if we had sort of an established sort of secondary library for these things, you know, to sort of vet these things and then graduate them if needed.
Right.
But we don't have. I don't think we have a very good process for that.
No.
But yeah, this would definitely be a good candidate for that.
Okay. Discussed in the team meeting today. It seems useful, but might sort of wrapper. Or maybe it's to provide. So where was the run in? Guess it must be in the other.
What is node calls? Oh, that's the, okay, so I guess that's,
I think this is sort of the wrapper or. This is something where, you know, basically helps set up the whole thing. And then in your C-side code is basically just say, hey, I'm going to run in this run in node thread.
yeah, it's a thread safe function that has like one reference all the time, and then you can call it from there. Yeah, okay, and right, yeah, because it's a function pointer. Yeah, okay, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, it's yeah, it's not it's yet another abstraction on top of
Right.
on top of thread safe function. It
Yeah,
seems
it's kind of makes
so
it easier to
flexible.
use, right?
Yeah, it's a great way to call from one thread into the node thread, and whether or not you then call JavaScript or not is becoming ever more beside the point. It's more this ability to communicate reliably and one-to-one from a secondary thread into Node.js.
Right.
It's a far greater value that the thread safe function provides than the actual call into JavaScript. That's trivial by comparison, it seems like.
Yeah, it's a synchronization between the two threads, effectively.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're kind of running out of time. So should I leave this comment? We'll maybe bring it up again next time.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So we'll just do that. Just want to go back to, I think maybe at this point we should, just to see if there's anything else on the agenda we should get to, because we use most of the time on that. I think we already discussed this one. Let's just see. Okay, so this is the one about renaming. I think maybe at this point, we should probably kick that till next week because it probably needs a bit more discussion.
I agree, Michael.
Sounds good. Thanks for adding in some of the possible next steps and stuff.
Yeah, just
maybe
to
we will move that to the top next time.
Okay, just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think it's kind of one of these things we want to sort of. It doesn't need to be a big bang, do everything overnight. We should be able to plan out, like you've got, like, what are the different sort of steps we can take one at a time. You know, because some of them, like just, you know, working on the docs can be relatively low impact versus adding new symbols is significantly more. So, actually, I thought I just tried to move that. Right.
I think we've got 2 issues going here.
Yeah. So this one now I can just close out.
Yeah, I think so.
Moved 3679 to this repo. So closing. Okay. Right. So I think those are all the things, you know, we didn't quite get through the stale things, but is there anything else that we think we need to talk about this week? Any like major issues going on? I investigated a couple flaky issues, which in the end I couldn't recreate and don't seem to be causing problems in the CI anymore, but I'm not aware of any other sort of problems on the API front, Node API front this week. Anybody else have any?
I scanned over the core issues yesterday, and I just reviewed Lucas's PR, and that was about the only one.
Okay. Okay, well, since we're out of time, maybe we'll call it for this week. And like I said, I can't make it next week because we have like a team face-to-face. But Gabriel's going to chair, and I look forward to watching the video and catching up with everybody in GitHub and then the next meeting.
All right.
See you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks.
Talk
and Mo, hopefully this was helpful to you, and maybe we'll see you next time.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to join sometime in the future too.
Okay, thanks.